Hey everyone, Bible Nerd here. Every Tuesday on my Facebook page, I post trivia questions. So I thought it'd be fun to go through and answer those questions after the day is over. See how many you get right, see how many you get wrong. Check out my Facebook page at Bible Nerd. Every day I post something different. So I have a different theme for each day. You can check out the content there as well. But love to have you be a part of the Facebook page along with the YouTube channel. So check out my video for today and answer the questions that were posted today on Facebook. All right, let's start with question number one and check out the new hat. I got a little nerd hat, little cross on the side. I got it in a couple different colors over here. So I thought it was going to be a fun addition today to add the little nerd hat. So I love the trivia questions because I think it helps you kind of nerd out on the Bible a little bit. And that's why I wanted to do this each Tuesday as a way to help with the Bible study as well, and just kind of a fun way to do it. So the first question I posted today on Facebook and Instagram is, what is the name of the Babylonian king who conquered Jerusalem and took the Israelites captive? Is it A, Nebuchadnezzar, B, Belshazzar, D, Darius, or C, Cyprus? So I'll give you a few seconds there to think about it. All right, the answer is A, Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. It's a lot in Jeremiah. You'll see some references in Jeremiah about what's happening during that time. But I think the best outline to answer the question is actually in 2 Kings chapter 24. So let's go to 2 Kings, which is after 1 Kings. So if we don't give you a deep Bible study like 1st and 2nd Kings, then go to another show or podcast. But 2 Kings is right after 1 Kings. And let's go to chapter 24. And you'll find in the 10th verse, 10th and 11th verse, it reads, out of this, I'm out of the New King James Version. At the time of the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants were besieging it. So that is the answer to today's first question. And I think it's pretty fascinating studying in this time of the Israelite culture. And that's where I think Jeremiah gives you some nuance in the prophecy that was leading up to this, that the southern tribe of Jerusalem, or the southern tribe of Israel, was going to be conquered. The northern tribe was more destroyed by the first kind of wave of conquerors. That was the Assyrians. But the southern tribe kind of was able to insulate themselves from that for a time, because it still had some kings that were doing well, and they had just a better record, it seems. But then finally, it was just time where God had prophecies that this people was going to get wiped out, but that he was going to bring them back. So this is going to be the start of the exile period, the first temple being destroyed, that eventually leads into the Babylonian captivity, and then eventually leads into the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. Daniel's during this time. But those two books we've done some deep dives on in the past. It's just beautiful to kind of understand the world history that was happening during this time, and when the Israelites were eventually allowed to return back and build the temple under the reigns and tutelage of Ezra and Nehemiah. So that's the answer to today's question, is A, Nebuchadnezzar. Did you get it right? All right, let's try another question. All right, now on to question number 2. What was the first miracle performed by Jesus according to the Gospel of John? So I'll give you a few seconds here before I pop up the multiple choice. What do you think the first miracle that Jesus performed according to the Gospel of John? All right, give a few seconds here. How many people already know it? All right, let's pull up some multiple choice. Was it A, healing the blind man? Was it B, feeding the 5,000? C, turning water into wine? Or D, walking on water? Well, I've already given you what book it's in, so let's jump to that. Let's go to the Gospel of John. We'll go to chapter 2, starting in the first verse. We'll go through the story here. On the third day, there was a wedding in Canaan of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now, both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "We have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to do, do it." Now they were set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." And they filled them to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was now made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who drew the wine knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom. And he said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now. This begins the signs of Jesus did in Canaan of Galilee and manifest his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So the answer is there. C, turning water into wine. Now, a couple things I think there's some nuance in this story you may not be familiar with. So, first of all, these stone pots of water were for purification. So, this is where they washed their hands or feet, or this was water that was used to purify before the Jews were able to eat. They were supposed to go through this cleansing process before they ate. So, this isn't perfect water to begin with. This is probably dirty or dirty or been splashed in, or multiple hands have been in this. This isn't necessarily like fresh, clean spring water that they're using. They're using this purification water, which is really bath water. It's cleaning water, right? And I think something else that's really interesting about this is he says, "My hour has not yet come." Yet his first miracle is really a miracle of being able to control time, because wine is a process. It's a fermentation process. You have to crush up the grapes. You have to let it alcohol. You have to make it a time. Like the older the wine sits there, kind of the better it starts to get. So it's really this first miracle is a miracle of time control, or control over that process to change something that's not even wine, but turn it into something that normally takes a long time. Especially when he says, "Hey, normally they put out kind of the good wine, and then when their senses get dulled and they've already had a bunch to drink, they start kind of bringing out the cheap stuff." And this guy's saying, "Hey, whoa," he even makes it a big announcement and says, "You've actually brought out like the best later on. You've kind of spun that tradition in a sense." And usually that's also an indication of having a little more money too. You kind of get the good stuff out and then be able to kind of go with the cheaper once the senses are dulled a little bit from this. And so it goes to show that this wasn't just a mediocre, just kind of watered down, that this was good enough to where the guy was like, "Holy cow," even with dulled senses, like, "Man, this stuff's good. This is the good stuff." So I think that there's some nuance there that maybe you miss out if you've heard the story a bunch of times, that I just thought I would point out as part of this kind of Bible study trivia night, is to go for yourself and kind of read this story. But it's pretty fascinating that not only is unpurified water used, but also that it's a mastery of time itself in a real sense, as one of his first miracles. And I think that's what you see is so shocking. Even in our culture today, we'll have superheroes that have certain powers. Superman can fly. Certain characters can do things, but you'll see constantly that Jesus isn't just the God of water turning into wine. He'll be the God of the storms, of the weather, of time, of forgiving sins. I mean, he's crossing over a bunch of these areas, because even during this time, you might have a God that proclaimed to be able to turn water into wine or have control over the wine god could do that. But then he couldn't calm the waters. He couldn't walk on water. He couldn't do all the other things that Jesus did. And I think that this is laying the foundation that he's in control of time itself in that sense. So I think that's a really incredible story and answers today's trivia question, or number two. So let's move on to number three. All right, question number three. We do 4 every Tuesday, so this is question number 3. I really have fun doing this. Hope you're having fun with the video and learning something today. So here is number 3. What was the name of the woman who became queen and saved her people from extermination? So I'll give you the multiple choice real quick. Was it A, Ruth, B, Deborah, C, Esther, or D, Delilah? Give it a few seconds. Ba, 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 ba. I don't know if I can do that song. Can I do that song, or is there going to be like a copyright thing? I better stop doing that. All right. The answer is C, and it's actually the book of the same name, the book of Esther. And it's a beautiful story of kind of the history of what's going on during that time and during the exiles and things like that, where the Jewish people are in kind of a whole different culture. And Esther happens to be Jewish or Hebrew, and she ends up getting up the ranks within to be the queen. But even as the queen, she had to ask permission. And if she went in front of the king and he didn't like what she said, or there was something that was wrong, then it could be her death. So it's a very serious thing that she does. And the way that she kind of works that system is brilliant and beautiful at the same time. How she kind of keeps doing these banquets and the whole story behind it. But the Esther book is one of the few, I think it's the only book that doesn't name God specifically. But you can know that there's nuance within it and what's happening, and who the people that are being trying to be saved during this book. It's also the only second book that is named after a woman. There's only 2 books in the Bible that are females as the main character. There's also something called Purim, Purim, that is one of the celebrations that the Jewish people have. It's one of their jolliest, most kind of celebratory festivals that celebrates the Book of Esther, and they'll actually read through it. And I've actually watched some of the videos and heard some people comment about it. And as they get to certain parts of the book, they'll kind of reenact it. And there's a funny part where the enemy of the book, when his name is brought up, they hiss and they as they do it. And it's really kind of fun to watch them kind of reenact this story. Also, the Book of Esther is the only book in the Bible that wasn't been or hasn't been discovered at the Dead Sea Scrolls, because it is a little bit lacking, I guess, of the theology and some of the stuff, but it's still culturally relevant and still ties into the story. And I think there's some nuance and there's some things you can learn from it that I think are really crucial to just understand the Jewish people a little bit more and what they were going through, that adds to the overall arching story of what makes them who they are and some of their history. And that's why I think the Book of Esther is still very important. I still think it's a valuable part of the Old Testament. But the festivals that they do around it are really kind of funny, how they'll reenact certain parts with just symbols or little shaking rattles, or when Haman, his name is brought up, they kind of hiss because ends up being the enemy trying to literally wipe out and exterminate the entire Jewish people. And so it's really kind of fun to see how they reenact what was happening during that story. So the answer is C, Esther, the Book of Esther. It's well worth a read. All right, on to the final question. Look, I know. I'm sorry. Last question. But guess what? We'll do it again next Tuesday. Also on my podcast, we're going through the Gospel according to Luke. So you have some more stuff there to tie you over. But I know this is the final question for today, but we got to do it. Here's the final one. All right. In the book of Revelation, how many seals are opened by the Lamb? Everyone's favorite book in the New Testament, the book of Revelation. So, and the good news is it's the very last book. So you can just go right to the back of the book and you can go into the book of Revelation. So is it A, 4, B, 7, C, 10, or D, 12? How many seals are opened by the Lamb? All right, let's go to Revelation chapter 5. And our answer will be found. Good old Revelation. All right, we're going to go to the first and fifth verse of that. So we're going to skip a couple verses there, but it says right here, chapter 5, verse 1. And I saw in the right hand of him who sat at the throne a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?" And let's go down to verse 5. Where's verse 5 here? Oh, there you go. Okay, yep. But one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loosen its 7 seals." So the answer is B, 7 seals. And I tell you what, there's a couple books as you're reading the Bible. Leviticus jumps to mind, maybe Numbers a little bit, just because of all the numbers and some genealogies that are in there. But I think Revelation is probably one of the most misunderstood or represented even in Hollywood, this apocalyptic literature. But there's a lot of apocalypses, and if you look at what the word means, it's everybody. I've had apocalypses, in my own life, but this is really a very apocalyptic type literature, which definitely will mean more if you study that word. But I think it's one of the most Hollywood-fied scriptures about the end of times and how it's written. And I think Revelation doesn't get enough of its actual true meditation because of those presuppositions about what type of literature or what type of work it is. But I have actually had a CD in my car that is Revelation. And I've had it kind of playing on trips and stuff like that, just to kind of keep going through and just trying to dive into it and kind of understand some of the symbolism, because really it's John being taken into this area where all these events are happening and stuff's going on. And there's a lot of crazy visual stuff going on in this. But I think if you haven't looked at Revelation in a while, it's worth maybe going back and looking at it, because I guarantee you what more you have in your head, if you haven't studied it, is more what you've seen with Hollywood and movies and YouTube and End of the World and Nostradamus, and Revelation somehow was mixed in there. And yes, there's a lot of that stuff. I'm not saying it's not in there, but I think you'd be surprised if you haven't reflected on the book in a while, how much other secular or other type of people telling you what it's about has crept in, especially on Revelation. So I think it's well worth going through it. Bible Project has a great little video about it. I think it's really helpful just to make sure that what concepts you have about the story are actually what's in the story and not something that's kind of crept in. And I think Revelation has that chance to have more apocalyptic imagery and stuff that's happening that may not actually be in the book itself, and doesn't make it any easier to understand. It's definitely a hard book to read, and because it is almost dream works and prophecy, and there's some things going on that are very confusing, but that's what makes it fun to dive into it. So my plan after we get done with Luke, I think we're going to be talking about Revelation, just because I've done a lot more studying on this book because I'm trying to get a better idea how it works. But today's answer, and the answer there is how many seals are opened by the Lamb, is B7. Well, how fun was that? Trivia Tuesday. So check out my Facebook page at Bible Nerd. I post different things every day. I have themes for each day. Monday is motivational or quote Mondays. I'll put a bunch of quotes up. Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday. Wednesday is usually tied to music, so I'll post music videos or things that are really inspiring on Christian music and things like that. Thursday, I usually do a Thankful Thursday. So I have all these challenges and stuff throughout the day that's a lot of fun. And then Friday, I have a discussion or a topic that I'll bring up and just get some interaction, get some people talking back and forth. So it's really a lot of fun. Love where this is going. I love that you're a part of it. Please click subscribe, like, and comment. Let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. I just love going on this journey with you and can't wait to see where God takes us. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and God bless.